Will the president follow through on his pledge to turn the phrase radical economic transformation into action? Family and fans bid a final farewell to rugby great Joost Westhuizen. And former Life Esidimeni staff say they remain haunted by the deadly transfer of psychiatric patients. It's Friday. Hello and welcome to it. You're watching eNews Direct. I'm Duduzile Ramela.
And I'm Sandy Nagangase. Good evening.
To comment on any of our stories, you can find us on Twitter and Facebook. That's at eNews Direct.
And tonight our hashtags are Sona 2017 and Joost Memorial.
Radical economic transformation was the main theme of President Jacob Zuma's State of the Nation address. And some analysts say the president may be personally invested in implementing changes.
Today, we are starting a new chapter of radical socio-economic transformation.
This was the cornerstone of President Jacob Zuma's address. But it's not the first time we've heard it from Msholozi.
You need a radical change.
The implementation of radical social economic transformation.
This time around, though, there was a promise to turn words into action.
We are saying that we should move beyond words to practical programs.
The president wants to use state procurement to empower black entrepreneurs and ensure more black people are involved in owning and managing production facilities, along with rapidly increasing the pace of land reform. Although welcomed by many as a vehicle for empowerment, some economists argue it's missing one big point.
We know education is a big one, probably more long-term, but also economic participation, because we're not going to get this big number as an aggregate unless we start talking to the smaller numbers where individuals are actually being included, whether we're talking agriculture, we are talking small businesses.
And with one eye on retirement, there's perhaps more to this move than meets the eye.
It's both a necessary exercise for the ANC and for the country, but then we cannot ignore the personal interest embedded in it.
Fundamentally changing the patterns of ownership and control in the economy will take more than emotive slogans and hopeful promises. And in his last year as state and ANC president, can Jacob Zuma pull off such an incredible feat? In the next 10 months, South Africans will find out. Nicolaas Bauer, Johannesburg.
Meanwhile, the DA is questioning the constitutionality of armed forces in Parliament following yesterday's chaotic State of the Nation address. EFF MPs were forcibly removed during the president's speech. Now, the DA wants the courts to declare Parliament's deployment of armed soldiers unconstitutional.
Military police armed to the teeth inside the parliamentary precinct. Opposition parties believe the deployment of non-ceremonial military personnel violates the separation of powers, and the DA is asking the courts to rule whether it was unconstitutional.
Armed military police with live ammunition on the precinct of Parliament is completely untenable and unconstitutional and does not help our democracy.
If the scenes outside the National Assembly were unprecedented, then inside it was what we've come to expect from a State of the Nation address. Chaos. But the DA and the EFF want an investigation to determine whether police officers assisted Parliament's security staff in removing MPs. This would be in violation of a previous court order prohibiting police from entering the National Assembly. But the ANC lays blame squarely on the EFF. They accuse an EFF supporter of releasing tear gas powder in the public gallery, calling it a deliberate attempt to prevent Parliament from fulfilling its constitutional mandate.
The conduct of the EFF members of Parliament last night, which involved blatant acts of criminality and intimidation, is the clearest indication yet that the party's resoluteness to render Parliament dysfunctional.
MPs returned to Parliament on Tuesday to debate President Zuma's State of the Nation address. But it will be under a cloud, with the memory of Thursday's violence still fresh. Lester Kivet, Parliament.
Let's shift focus on to other news now, and mourners have paid rugby legend Joost van der Westhuizen a tearful goodbye. Fans and family members gathered at Loftus Versfeld Stadium in Pretoria to celebrate the life of the former Springbok captain. Van der Westhuizen has been described as a true son of the soil. He died after battling with motor neuron disease since 2011.
Bidding farewell to one of the greatest scrum halves of all time, Joost van der Westhuizen. Some couldn't hold back their tears.
He worked very hard, with discipline and hard work. He was a very, very proud Blue Bull. He was a very, very proud Springbok. And he loved this country with all of his heart.
Members of the Springbok team that won the Rugby World Cup in 1995 offered their condolences.
On the field, he played like a rock star. On the field and off the field, he partied like a rock star, because he was, after all, a rock star.
Van der Westhuizen's former wife, Amor Vuitton, spoke fondly of the man she described as a devoted father.
Of course, we knew this day was coming, but nothing prepares you for the sad reality that he is gone. And though he turned his disease into an opportunity to help others, which was so very brave, it doesn't ease the pain of having him no longer present.
The International Rugby Fraternity also paid its last respects.
Joost van der Westhuizen invented the modern scrum half. Not only was he extremely determined, competitive, skillful, all the attributes that I didn't have, that he set the benchmark for the modern player.
The former Blue Bulls player has been laid to rest. Khalihle Khumalo, Pretoria.
Former Life eSetimeni staff have revealed how desperate psychiatric patients begged them to try and stop transfers. They've spoken out about their horror and hopelessness at the deaths of 94 people. The mentally ill patients were moved to 27 unlicensed NGOs. The staff say they're still haunted by those transfers and the deadly consequences.
I remember the first day when they left. They came, they were on a bus. And I didn't know that I would cry when I see them. And it was worse because it's the mentally retarded, those who cannot talk for themselves, and seeing them going, not knowing where they were going, and coming to think that they don't even know that maybe they would be thrown wherever, and they couldn't say a thing. And I just couldn't help but cry. I'm sorry.
Mandisa Giosa had been a social worker at Life eSetimeni's Waverley Care Centre for 8 years when the Gauteng Health Department decided to move 1,300 psychiatric patients from various centres to 27 unlicensed NGOs. Some of the patients she cared for had lived at the facility for 30 years.
It wasn't enough time, so I don't think they were prepared enough. It made me feel powerless because most families would come to me and they were expecting me as a social worker to make sure that this process doesn't continue. And I felt like a failure because I was supposed to be advocating for them, but I was powerless.
Giyose and her colleagues, Sister Zanele Buthelezi and Waverley Hospital Manager Paul Mokoena, all confirm that staff asked for the right to inspect the NGO facilities that patients were to be transferred to. They were turned down. Buthelezi says staff cooperated with the move as best they could, but one specific memory just won't go away.
There was an NGO that came with a dilapidated buggy to come and fetch the patients.
So I refused because I told them that they cannot take patients in a bakkie because these are not animals, are human beings. So I refused. I was deeply hurt. I was very deeply hurt because we have bonded with these patients. You know, we're like a family.
Waverley Hospital manager Paul Mokwena says many patients and their families wrongly believed that he and his team could stop the transfers and begged them to do so.
Some said, you know what, if we go, let us go with our nurses because these are the people that we know and these are the people that we came to associate and be family to, you know. So it was quite emotional. I remember one patient who came, his name is Becky, and he was crying actually when he came to our office that we shared with Zanele, and he said, please, can we stop this thing because that is the only place that he knew to be his home. And it was not a nice thing. You know, you try to say to the patient, please, it will be okay, but we're not certain that it will be okay because we are also emotional about this whole thing.
No, it wasn't okay.
It wasn't okay.
Joost says she started receiving calls from patients' family members inviting her to their funerals in the weeks following the transfers. She couldn't bring herself to go. I ask her if she wants to know if the patients she cared for are among the 94 dead.
It's hurting already, so knowing the names would hurt me more.
Do you feel like you're walking around with a broken heart?
I am.
Karen Morn, Johannesburg.
We move beyond our borders now, and Kenya has declared a national disaster due to the drought affecting much of the country. Aid agencies say more than 11 million people in Kenya, Ethiopia and Somalia are facing severe hunger. The agencies say the countries urgently need humanitarian assistance. President Uhuru Kenyatta has warned distributors of aid not to take advantage of the situation and enrich themselves. Joost van der Westhuizen's estranged wife, Amor Vitoni, has posted a moving tribute video on YouTube. She did so before the rugby star's memorial service. The video shows personal photos of Joost with his children on holiday. It also includes footage from their wedding day. And the ANC Youth League has given ABSA 21 days to refund over 2.2 billion rand. The money was allegedly received from the apartheid government. The Youth League hosted an Occupy ABSA march outside the bank's head office in Johannesburg today. They've threatened to occupy every branch until the bank pays back the money. A leaked Public Protector report accuses ABSA of unduly benefiting from an apartheid-era bailout. Bank officials accepted the memorandum of demands from the league. And a reminder, if you've missed any of the stories we're tracking for you tonight, you can of course find us on Twitter and Facebook. That's at eNews Direct, or you can head on over to our website. That's enca.com/direct. Your business news and your weekend weather forecast after this. Agri-SA says the new national minimum wage will bring stability to the agricultural sector. The deal comes into effect in May next year. It sets a minimum monthly wage of 3,500 rand a month. Workers in the agricultural sector will be paid 90% of the set minimum wage. From next month, Agri-SA says workers will be paid 15 rand 39 cents per hour. It says farmers unable to afford the pay hike must apply for a variation before the new wage comes into effect. Let's see how the markets perform today. With all your weather details.
Hi there everyone and welcome to the Weather Centre. Let's take a look at today's satellite loop and we can see that there were thunder showers throughout the central parts of the country as expected. Those are quite scattered for some parts of the Free State. And we also had smaller thunder showers popping up in places in the afternoon for some areas around Gauteng and in the far western parts. Over the Western Cape, it was a very hot day, especially for the inland areas where temperatures rose into the upper 30s. Let's take a look at your forecast for Saturday, and we expect it to be a hotter day for KwaZulu-Natal. Isolated thunder showers possible for most areas, but Richards Bay will be very hot but dry with a maximum of 36. Heading into the Eastern Cape, and it's also going to be hot for this province. There's a better chance for thunderstorms over this area, a 60% chance for most parts. Heading into the Western Cape, and we only expect a few isolated thunder showers over the eastern areas of this province. As you head westwards, we don't expect any rain. Slightly cooler along the coastline, and there could also be a bit of fog, including around Table Bay early in the day. In the Northern Cape, still a likelihood for thunder showers for some areas. Uppington, somewhat cooler, 34 degrees as a maximum. And for the Free State, we expect scattered thunderstorms over the southern areas, including Bloemfontein and Zastron. But those thunder showers are going to be isolated in the north of the province. For the northwest, Mahikeng gets to 30 degrees. A few thunder showers popping up during the afternoon hours. And we don't expect much in the way of rainfall in Popo, except a few drops possible along the escarpment earlier on. Heading into Mpumalanga, and we also expect thunder showers for the Highveld in the afternoon. Heading down into the Lowveld, on the other hand, Skukuza gets to 37, and we don't expect any rain for your region. And finally, here's a look at Gauteng. Another hot day lies ahead for the area, and once again, we will see a few patchy thunder showers developing in places. A look ahead to the second half of the weekend, and we expect wet weather to continue through the central parts. We expect a few drops of rainfall along the south coast, maybe even some drizzle around Cape Town. And heading into Monday, when wet conditions return to parts of KZN, Pretoria with a high of 33 degrees and a few thunder showers returning to Limpopo as well as Mpumalanga.
Thank you, Louis. After the break, villagers in North India are going the extra mile to keep elephants warm. Rescue elephants in northern India are getting some extra love.
Yep, and the villagers are making winter garments specifically for the big creatures.
Elephants may have a thick skin, but in winter, temperatures in Uttar Pradesh can reach freezing point at night. Locals are now coming to the elephants' aid and making them something warm to put on.
आप लोग को इतनी सर्दी लग रही है तो ये तो मतलब जानवर हैं बेचारे इसको सर्दी नहीं लग रही है तो इनके लिए स्वेटर बन रहे हैं.
And it's no small feat. 7 women take about 3 weeks to make one giant jersey. Each garment needs about 4 kilograms of wool. At first, some of the knitting and crocheting went to waste because the elephants refused to wear the jerseys. But after losing the sleeves, the animals have taken to the warm woolly pullovers.
Maya gets very ticklish wearing a sweater. So when we tried putting the sweater on her, she absolutely refused to wear it. She actually tried to throw it off. So then obviously she doesn't like it, so we wouldn't force it on her. So then she loves it, so she wears it.
As these are rescue elephants, they're particularly susceptible to getting sick.
A recap of your top stories. Will the president follow through on his pledge to turn the phrase radical economic transformation into action? Family and fans bid a final farewell to rugby great Joost van der Westhuizen. And that's a wrap from the eNews Direct team.
Yep, on the other side of the break, Rhythm City.
We do love to hear from you. You can send us an email to enewsdirect@etv.co.za.
Or, of course, you can just talk to us on Twitter and Facebook. And the handle that you need is @eNewsDirect.
Our weekend team will bring you the very latest news at 7 p.m. From us, it's good night and have a fantastic weekend. Bye-bye.